Hey Laura, welcome to the stream. Can you hear me? Hey Jimmy H, welcome to the stream. Can you guys hear me? Testing, testing, 1, 2. Thanks, Racing. Hey, Sharon. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Audio confirmed. Welcome to the stream, Kim Sotis, Aurelius. What's going on with you guys today on this nice Saturday afternoon? And we actually have some great weather here. It's in the 70s out there. Feels so good after it being so hot for quite a while. Hey Guppy Crib, welcome to the stream. Guppy Crib, I know that I kind of pushed back on you tooting my horn in Corey's live stream. Hey Victor, welcome to the stream. I wasn't trying to be rude to you, Guppy Stream. I'm just not as invested in getting to 1,000 as a lot of people are. I just really want to grow organically, and I mean, I'm not against people touting me and saying go sign up, but I'm also not invested in people saying go sign up. I'd rather have a steady audience that actually engages with my videos. Hey Sergeant Tank, welcome to the stream. I really liked your video today, Jeremy. I think you did an excellent job handling those fish. Yeah, I'm not interested in anybody's money. I'm not interested in fame or fortune with this stuff. I'm just trying to help fellow fish hobbyists. It's something that I love, so I don't want to make it a job. I want it to be something that I have no stress invested in. But I'm just trying to tell Guppy Crib that I wasn't trying to be rude or ugly when I said don't say let's get Dwain to 1,500 in Corey's live stream. I wasn't trying to be ugly. I was just I'm just not how do I put this? I'm just not invested in the whole fame and fortune and ego side of YouTube. I just want it to be fun. No pressure, no stress. So I hope I explained that well. I titled my stream this time, Winter is Coming. Of course, I'm sure you'll understand that part of that is that Game of Thrones is on, and I'm greedily devouring the Game of Thrones episodes as they come out. We don't have too many of them left, but it's also relevant to the fact that we're past midpoint in the year. Those of us in the northern hemisphere are past the midpoint in the year. We're almost in the 8th month. And we do need to spend some time as fish keepers kind of preparing for winter coming. winter presents a whole new set of problems. You know, in the summertime, we our heaters get to rest. We don't have to. We're more worried about keeping the tanks cool than we are keeping them hot. And so, as wintertime rolls around, we need to do inspections of our heaters. We need to pull our heaters out, turn them off, let them cool off, pull them out, and inspect them for cracks, for water on the inside. And water on the inside is an interesting topic. You're always going to have a certain amount of evaporation happen on the inside of a heater, but when it builds up to a certain point, and I'm probably not the one to tell you exactly how much moisture you can have inside one of your heaters, but it's not a good idea to have a great deal of moisture inside of a heater because it can crack on you. And if we do a little bit of preparation up front, where we spend some time pulling a heater out, examining it fairly closely, checking on the moisture that's inside of it, maybe cleaning scale off of the outside of it, checking the suction cups, cleaning the suction cups. There's a lot of things that we can do to prepare our fish rooms for winter time. Now, you know, it's not winter yet, but it's always a good idea in the fish keeping hobby to be prepared in advance. So I think that other people here in this chat room have a lot of valuable advice to give in the same area. Jeremy, I know, has been through many winters as a fish keeper. Hey, King Lee, welcome to the stream. Well, Jimmy H says, "Yep, just have fun with the hobby," and that's part of it. Part of it is that when you know, I'm kind of on a knife's edge here with YouTube, in the sense that I'm trying to balance how much time I spend and invest in YouTube. It's very addictive. It's something that if we're not careful, we spend all of our time doing. I mean, I can sit and watch videos 24/7, you know. Hey, J Aches Aquatics, welcome to the stream, man. Glad you're here. Hey, Susan, welcome to the stream. So, I'm a firm believer of the quote middle way. Hey, David, welcome to the stream. I think that the far extremes of both ends, i.e. 24/7, we do nothing but watch YouTube videos and concern ourselves with YouTube content and spend every waking minute on YouTube, is not really good for us. And on the other hand, spending no time here, giving absolutely no interest to it, not trying to perfect our craft or learn, that's also not good. So you've got to kind of find a balance point, you know, a place where you're not super over invested. I mean, we have lives, and if we don't invest some time in our lives or our relationships, we have to change something, you know. So I think that it behooves us, you know. I had a video not that long ago where I said, don't watch this stream. In other words, get up and go outside and engage with nature out there. So I think that there's a lot of value to be had in balancing how much time we spend on YouTube with other activities, with our day-to-day lives, with our water changes, with observing our fish tanks, observing our fish. So it's kind of wrapped up with that. I don't want to, but I do. I mean, my point in this video is to talk about ways to winterize your fish room, ways to winterize your fish tanks. There's a lot of breeding behaviors in fish that are wrapped up in what in the northern hemisphere is wintertime, is summertime in the southern hemisphere. So we need to recognize that most of our fish in their lives well, good on you, Susan, for doing 100 gallons of water changes. That's the balance that MTS has for you. When you go out and buy 30 tanks, you got to think about how many buckets of water that equals to doing water changes. That's a lot of carrying or a lot of pumping water. So a lot of the fish that I personally keep, I'm pretty much South and Central American centric. That's mostly what I keep. That's most of the kinds of fish that I find fascinating. Yeah, Joel is in the southern hemisphere, so his fish are experiencing winter when really they should be experiencing summer. But our fish from the southern hemisphere usually experience a dry season at the turn of when we turn into winter and they are turning into summer. They will usually experience a dry season where there is less rain and the water levels drop. And I may be off on the exact timing here. I may have it a little bit slightly backwards. JH Aquatics is in the U.S. Virgin Islands and he's chilling his tanks right now. Yeah, JH, I can imagine. I'm jealous of you living in such an incredible environment down there. What are your temperatures running? 90s? 100s? Anyway, what I'm trying to get at with our fish is that a lot of times in the southern hemisphere, when we're experiencing the opposite of it, our fish are experiencing low water levels, less rain, and the water quality drops on them. They're more waste and less water, although it's variable because of how much water they're actually in. But their water quality does drop. There may be less food for them. Ray's Home Aquarium says, "Hi Dwayne, I have a question. Do you feel it's best to treat my guppies and swordtails with meds coming indoors from my tubs in September?" I mean, Ray, you're going to have to spend some time observing your fish. I wouldn't put them right away in with other fish that have been indoors. I would put them in a quarantine tank and watch them. My old school methodology for meds is to avoid them at all possible, if at all possible. So sometimes my advice is not the best because I tend to not add meds. But my advice to you would be to put them in a quarantine situation where you can observe them closely. And then if you feel the need, I think Corey's best recommendation is probably erythromycin and general cure. You know, that's what he treats with when most of his fish come in. You might hold off on the erythromycin and just use general cure to see if that knocks out any parasites that they may have. JH says he chills his tanks to keep them in the 70 to 80 Fahrenheit range.
How do you chill a tank?
My wife is chiming in and asking, how do you chill a tank? Is my stream lagging on you guys? It's lagging on my end. It shows healthy. To answer my wife, you can, in an emergency situation, you can chill a tank with a bag of ice, a sealed baggie of ice dropped in the tank, and let it slowly cool off the water. There are chillers. I've seen people take a small refrigerator and run a plastic pipe straight through it so that it's being cooled as the water passes through it, and then running that in a cycle so that you've got 2 foot of PVC pipe inside of a refrigerator, you know, like an inch high. JH Aquatic says he uses the air conditioner in the room and fans for evaporation and a chiller.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of climates where it's cold and wet all the time. And David McMinney is saying that in Ireland it's winter all of the time.
Yeah.
David, if the global warming warms the ocean another couple of degrees and the Gulf Stream stops, it's going to be ice age time for the northern climes. That's the one thing that keeps those areas moderate in their temperature, is the temperature of the Gulf Stream. It starts in the Atlantic, up in the Arctic, with cold ice melt dropping a low current to the bottom of a less salty water, dropping to the bottom of the ocean, and that creates a current that comes down the east coast of the United States and spins out into the ocean, picking up heat, crosses the Atlantic and goes all the way up to England and the Nordic coasts, and then circles back to the Arctic again. That's how the planet cools itself off or moderates the temperature. But yeah, chillers can be expensive. If you buy a dedicated chiller for a tank, and I know a lot of reef people use them for their saltwater reefs, those are expensive. It's one of the reasons why I've always shied away from salt, is the expense of the entire hobby. You know, and I know you can do it on the cheap, but I've always felt like that the amount of money that I would spend to set up and really correctly run a reef tank would allow me to run 3 or 4 normal tanks. So I've always just stayed. Okay, my audio settings are down to good, lower bit rate. YouTube really seems to be doing a lot of lagging lately. I don't know what's going on. I noticed that Nisi was saying that there is a lot of lag and drag and clipping going on in an awful lot of streams on YouTube. I don't know if that's her connection or if it's my connection. I've got a pretty decent connection, so it's kind of interesting that I would be lagging. So to get back to what I was talking about earlier, the fish in the southern hemisphere experience a low water period of time where the water quality degrades slightly because of the evaporation and water runoff, allowing the water levels to drop pretty low in the streams and lakes and rivers that are there in the southern hemisphere. And we can actually create the same situation in our tanks by not doing a water change, skipping a water change, letting the water parameters degrade slightly in our tanks, not enough to hurt our fish, but enough for them to experience what in the wild they experience as a dry season. Because after that dry season comes a wet season where there is a phenomenal amount of water suddenly in their environments. The rains come and flood lakes, flood rivers. There are rivers in South America that a lot of our loricard catfish come from, where it's basically a stream most of the year until the flood seasons come. And when the floods hit, it will rise as much as 4 feet in the bed of the stream or creek and be full of mud, full of rocks, full of wood that's being washed down from wherever it was. And the fish are tuned into that, so that when there is suddenly all this more water in their environment, the water parameters usually, except for some instances, will suddenly get wonderfully better. The water's all of a sudden a lot more pure, and there is an increase in food. And a lot of times these situations will trigger our fish to breed. So they recognize in the wild that when all this water starts coming, suddenly there's an increase in food, suddenly there's an increase in water parameters, suddenly they can get to places to breed that they couldn't before because of the water level, and they are tuned into that natural situation in such a way that they begin to breed. They go into breeding behavior. So it's possible for us as fish keepers to take advantage of that situation and to use it to our advantage to try to get some of our fish to breed if they haven't been breeding for us before. Barometric pressure plays into this. A big low pressure comes across the face of the planet. Fish feel that. They feel it coming long before we do. Of course, we've got weather observation which will tell us that it's coming before the fish even know that it's coming. But if we have been running a Kim Sodas is asking, wouldn't the big change be in effect tinkering with water buffering, which includes minerals, pH fluctuation, nitrates, etc.? Exactly what happens in the wild. Now, understand that in the wild, the amount of change may not be as big as the amount of change that we would have in our tank if we, say, left our tanks for 2 weeks without changing water and then suddenly did a 70% water change. That would probably be more extreme. So yes, we need to take the health of our fish into account when we're trying to use this natural advantage to get our fish to breed. We don't want to do something where we're killing our fish to get them to breed. We want to do something where we're trying to replicate a natural situation where there is a fluctuation in water quality and parameters, and then quickly add more water to the tank, do a big water change, which in effect is acting like a large rainstorm, so it can be slightly cooler, slightly warmer. It can be a moderate pH change. It can be a moderate KH and GH. Susan says, I think I do that when I miss water changes and allow snails to break down a dead fish from time to time. Not on purpose, though. Sometimes I can't find a missing fish. Yeah, they can get tough to find, especially in planted tanks. But yes, in a sense, Susan, you're right. That's basically what's going on. JH Aquatics brings up, what about natural dried botanicals and tannins? There are a lot of fish that will make great use of botanicals and tannins in the water. In fact, some fish you really can't keep without them. Well, you may be able to keep them alive, but you're probably not going to get them to breed. So yes, but you've got to, in the Laura said she had a barbecue today in the pouring rain. Well, I'm sure that was fun. David says, Laura, there's no such thing as bad weather. It's just wrong cloths. Yeah, you got to be prepared. JH bringing up botanicals and tannins. You've got to figure out exactly when in their natural environment that they get a big dose, a big new dose of natural tannins. Most of the streams and rivers in South America have very little plant material in the bottom of them. It's usually only the whitewater rivers and some of the mixed water rivers that go over rapids coming down from the Andes or whatever natural environment where they're actually going off cliffs and coming down steep inclines over a very long stretch of river, maybe 20 miles of river that is dropping, 1,000 foot in height. Then you'll end up with a lot of rock work. The water will be kind of shallow. It will be very fast moving, and it will create a situation where plants can grow on the rock work close to the surface where they get enough sun. But most of these rivers are basically overhung with trees with very little vegetation in them. If you go on YouTube and look at videos in the wild of places where angelfish come from, discus fish come from, mostly what's in the water is a lot of dead tree material that has fallen out of trees or gotten knocked out of trees, full of leaves, dead or green, that go into the water, and then those break down, and that's where the natural tannins come from. In the slower moving areas, like in the north of the Amazon, you get a lot of dark water streams that are slow moving, or dark water rivers that are slow moving, and the tannins just black the water out. It looks like coffee if you pull it up in a cup. JH Aquatic says, so you could clear a lot of the botanicals out when you do that big water change to induce breeding. Yes and no, JH. I think you need to do some close study on when those botanicals are the heaviest, in the heaviest concentrations in native rivers. There are some places where the botanicals are so intense that they're called blackwater rivers because they're so dark. And David brings up the point that there are benefits in natural tannins, and I wholeheartedly agree with that, that there are a lot of antibacterial, there are a lot of anti-parasite materials in natural tannins. The breaking down of leaf litter at the bottom of a stream or a lake or a river will create a situation, and sometimes it's as much by low pH as it is by anything else. A lot of those fish that come from dark water rivers, black water rivers, have never experienced a lot of the parasites that can exist at 7.0, 8.0, 6.8 pH. They've never even had to deal with those creatures because those creatures can't exist at 4.0 pH or 5.0 pH or even probably 6.0 pH. And a lot of those rivers, the pH is in the 4 to 6 range because there is so many tannins in the water. In our tanks, we can create tannins and a lowering of pH by putting driftwood in our tanks, natural driftwood. The woods will continue to give off tannins. The woods will continue to leach pH down buffering materials into the water as long as they're in the tank. So you can add Indian almond leaf. I add magnolia leaves. There are a lot of leaves that you can add, and you probably need to spend some time looking online or in books to find out exactly which leaves you can add and in how much of a amount that won't, you need to watch your TDS, you need to watch your pH when you're dealing with a lot of tannins. But if you've got hard water coming out of your tap and you use your tap water, then you can adjust your pH by plants, by driftwood, by natural leaf litter. JH Aquatic says, I'm working a few blackwater tanks. I collect all my dried botanicals locally. Yeah, I tend to do that too because I know that these trees haven't been sprayed with pesticide. Now, I live in a town and there's traffic, so there's probably a certain amount of just traffic pollution that's added to my tree leaves, but I leave them on the ground and let them get rained on and start breaking down before I go out and collect them so that some of that stuff gets washed off. Now, I usually buy my driftwood because of wanting a certain look in the driftwood, or wanting a certain quality of driftwood like manzanita or, you know, grape roots or something like that. But yeah, you can save a lot of money if you're in an area where you could, you know, go find actual driftwood on beaches or in an area that's near to you. Now, if you got your driftwood from the ocean, hey fish nerd, welcome to the stream. If you got your driftwood from an ocean beach, you would probably have to soak it for a long, long time and keep changing the water out to get the salt out of that piece of wood. You'd probably never get it all out, but you could get it out to a point where it wasn't affecting your fish too bad. Hey Corona Ken, welcome to the stream, man. We're kind of talking about the things that we can do to get ready for winter. Of course, my title is a play on words for the Game of Thrones that's happening right now, because they're fixing to get a 10-year winter in that make-believe world. But there are a lot of things as fish keepers that we can do to try to prepare ourselves, our tanks, our fish rooms, and our fish for winter. It's a little early yet, but it's never too early to start trying to do these things, you know. Some of the examples are, you know, checking your heaters, maybe stocking up on a spare heater when it's financially possible for you to do that at a time when you're not, you know, stretching your budget, and getting ready for wintertime in the fish room. You can weatherize your fish room, the room in your house where drafts from windows and that sort of thing occur. You can check to make sure that your heating unit for your house is in good shape and functioning properly. These are all the kinds of things that you can do to prepare for when actual winter comes, so that it won't find you in a situation where suddenly you have an emergency and you cannot respond properly because it's Friday night at 12:30 in the morning and you can't get to a fish store. Fish Nerd says that he's just taking a short break from building a new basking platform for his turtles, and that sounds like fun.
Ask him what kind of turtles he has.
Fish Nerd, my wife wants to know what kind of turtles you have. Yeah, David, that's awesome that you can actually go and that you live in the area that Game of Thrones is filmed in. That's I'm highly jealous. Of course, there are probably times of the year when I wouldn't be so jealous, when I'd be. Fish Nerd says they're concentric diamondback terrapins. Those are awesome
Yeah.
turtles.
Wow.
You want to spend a little time talking?
Yeah, I'll spend a few minutes.
I'm going to move out of the way and give my sweet, dear wife a chance to talk to you guys. Maybe she'll tell you the state of her lighting presentation. I'm going to shut your video down so it's not eating up there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're probably having some delay in that. You guys need to go outside, Lucas. You want to go eat?
Hello, fish keepers. This is Jordan Dwain Kitchel. You can call me either one. Some people call me Jordy, some people call me Elaine. I just wanted to go back to what my husband was saying about the dry and the wet seasons in the southern hemisphere. It's important to, if you're keeping like South American cichlids or catfish or whatever southern species you have, it's important to know that for most of those species, it's the length of the day that tells them whether or not it's spawning time. And so, yes, they will react to things like the water quality and the tannins in the water and the temperature of the water, but by far, most of them, their main clue about when it's time to spawn is the length of the day. So if you're in the northern hemisphere and you're raising these southern fish, remember that if they are having long days, you are having short days. And no matter what you try to do to get your fish to spawn, if they're receiving natural light, they're probably going by that as their indicator. Most spawning behavior and sexual behavior in all creatures is governed by the circadian clock. Now there are a few creatures for whom this isn't true, but for most creatures it is. And the circadian clock, of course, has to do with length of day. And so you may have to put your fish, if you want them to spawn and you want to have these conditions in your tank, like more tannins, you need to make sure that they're not getting natural light, that they're getting the length of day that they should get in their home waters for spawning. So, and most of the time that's long days and short nights, but not always. So you need to be familiar with the kind of fish that you're keeping and how long the days are for their typical spawning. So that was the main thing I wanted to say. I don't know a whole lot about fish, but I do know about light, and so that just happens to be something I knew a little bit about. Oh, thank you, Laura, for that compliment. And Fish Nerd, I'd love to see photos of your terrapins. Do you have a photo bucket account or someplace where we can go to look at them? Let me know. See, Laura says, I don't have my glasses on, so I could get this wrong. Would the light in the aquarium not make a difference? The light in the aquarium, yes, makes a difference, but if they're getting sunlight, they will go by that. Sunlight always gets, it trumps everything else. So if they're getting sunlight, and I don't mean like just a little bit, like there's a window 2 rooms away, that's not going to make a difference. But if there's a window 6 feet away and they're getting that natural light, that's going to be what they go by. So yes, if lighting in the tank makes a big difference if they're not getting natural light. Does that answer your question? David says, my wife Colette says, hello Elaine. Well, hello Colette. Good to see you on chat. Also, Dwayne wanted me to talk about the state of my lighting presentation. I've been studying all about light and how it affects fish behavior and how it affects fish health. And the more I study and I get it all worked into my presentation, and then I find out I have more to learn. I love knowing that I have more to learn, but I'm trying to think, well, where do I draw the line? Do I just get this presentation out there so you can learn, 5/8 of it, or do I wait until I have the whole thing ready? And I don't think I'll ever get all the information, so probably will be a good thing to stop here pretty soon, draw a line, and then start a new presentation. So I've been working on it all month. I'm almost finished with the knowledge that I have now. I can bring you up to speed on that and get that out there for you, and then maybe start making a new one with the other things that I'm learning. But I'm pleased to say that there have been a lot of zoologists out there who have been studying fish and studying how light affects fish, and so certainly not enough information, but enough out there to help us make a difference with the way that we keep our fish. And so I will share that with you any day now. I just need to finish up the presentation and provide links like between the footnote and the actual resource quote in the back. The bibliography is what I meant. So that'll be soon, and we'll let you know. Dwayne will let you know. I saw the name Dan up on the screen, so I said Dan. Sorry, I do know what my husband's name is. And so I'll get that out to you as soon as possible. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay. Fish Nerd says he has a photo book, but I do have some pictures on them in my Instagram, and I feature them in a few videos on my channel. Okay, well, I'll just go to your channel then and look at those. Joel says, does the color or the intensity of the sunlight affect the breeding behavior? And typical house lights, will they trick the fish into thinking the sun is up? Yes, house lights will trick the fish into thinking that the sun is up. Just remember, though, if the sun is coming through and the fish can see it, they will go by that, because fish can see, a lot of fish can see ultraviolet and we can't, and that's the thing that triggers their circadian clock. So you can fool the fish some of the time, but you can't fool the fish all of the time. And color does make a difference. The more ultraviolet that is in the light that they're receiving, the more likely they are to think that it's summertime or that it's morning time. Ultraviolet signals both of those, and then the length of the time that the ultraviolet is visible signifies how long the day is. So fish are real instinctive about this. It's not that they sit down and count the hours and figure out, oh yeah, it's spawning time. No, it's just instinct, and their circadian clock works automatically just as yours does. Let's see, Jenna says hi. Hi, Jenna. And Fish Nerd has to drop out of chat for a bit. Nice to have you here, Fish Nerd. Come to the stream and Dwayne and his wisdom anytime. I'm going to turn this back over to my handsome husband.
Did you talk about your new video?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I have a name for the video. My new video is called, gosh, I can't remember now. I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up right away and have Dwayne tell you. I'll give it to him.
I'm talking about the Dustin Fish Tanks unboxing.
Oh, he wanted me to talk to you that I have a new video up where I unboxed some plants that I got from Dustin's Fish Tanks, and then I showed before and after of my tank and with the plants.
The background video is some of the raw footage from that.
And the background video is some of the raw footage from when I unbagged the plants and went through them with the audience. So I'd love for you to go to my channel and view that. It says Dustin Unboxing Dustin's Fish Tanks. And so I'd love for you to view that and let me know what you think of my sort of wild looking tank. And here's Dwayne. Okay. Oh, Winston says, I keep Central American cichlids and use natural light. Thanks for your knowledge. It's greatly appreciated. You are welcome, Winston. If ever I can help, any questions about lighting, and how it affects humans and or fish, I'll be happy to try to answer your questions. Okay, honey, here you go.
Hey, Susan. Welcome back. Kyle says that his Bellerai are getting over an inch. We're jealous, Kyle.
Did you tell him we have new baby Bellerai?
No, we don't have Bellerai. We've got Goiter Rivers. And yeah, he knows. What I'm especially jealous of, Kyle, is that tie-dyed Steam Spot Aquatics t-shirt that you sent back to Bob. That was a highly jealous-inducing thing. You're doing a great job tie-dyeing those Steam Spot Aquatics t-shirts. So I enjoyed that video, and I enjoyed your part of that video. So my wife's video about again adding more plants to her 75-gallon tank is the background video that's going on in this. It's some of the raw footage. Let's see. I can. No, I better not leave this page. Was I a hippie in the 70s? Joel, I spent a great deal of my very young youth in Florida and in Arkansas, and I've always considered Fayetteville, Arkansas home. And so what we called ourselves back in the 70s in that area was hill hippies. David wants a Dwain Kitchel t-shirt.
I'll start making them next week.
My wife says she'll start making them next week. Hey Jenna, thanks. Welcome to the stream. What's your name on? What you need to do is enter the stream, and I'll make you a mod if I haven't already, and you can type in a link to your video and your.
Oh, okay.
Hey Nisi, welcome to the stream, girl. How are you doing? How's everything in Alaska? And yes, I think Laura is right. It is Jordani Lane. If I was to do a t-shirt, I'd probably use my wonderful logo art that Priscilla did for me. It's in all my streams and in my you can see it there in my logo. If I did one, that's probably what I would do. Maybe greetings fish keepers or something like that on it. I don't know what my I mean, the thing I say more than anything else is observe your fish. I like Eric Bodrock's Be the Fish. There are a lot of things that you could say that would go on a t-shirt about fish keeping. But to get back on topic, I just really would like to stress to you guys that winterizing your fish room is something that you shouldn't start doing when the first snow starts falling. Winterizing your fish room is something that you should start doing months ahead of time so that it doesn't crunch you financially all of a sudden, so that you don't find yourself suddenly on a weekend with no heat for your, a heater breaks or starts acting up and you yank it out of the tank and Nisi says she's just popping in. Thanks for stopping by, Nisi. Always happy to have you in a stream.
You need to make me a mod so I can...
Well, say something so I can click on you and make you a mod. You have to post for me to be able to make you a mod. Oh, there's Nisi with the now you're a mod, honey. Nisi beat you to the link.
Oh, she did?
Yes. Thank you, Nisi. You're Johnny on the spot as always. The best moderator ever on YouTube. So again, save yourself some trouble. Don't wait until there's 15 inches of snow on the ground and suddenly decide that it's time to winterize your fish room. Stretch out the expense of buying spare heaters, of repairing your central heating unit. You can buy weatherized blankets. You can buy those shiny camping blankets that are used to keep heat in if you're out camping, and those will work really well around. You can wrap those around your tanks and it will help keep heat in on your tank. There are a lot of ways that you can insulate tanks, and it would behoove you to have this kind of stuff on hand before time. Yes, Nisi, and my better half has way more knowledge than I do, so she's the one you need to mine the wealth of knowledge. I just, as a fish keeper, as a fellow fish keeper, I hate it when I see my fellow fish keepers not prepping in advance for a season to come. So that's my point of my winter is coming stream, is that I want you as fish keepers to try to do the best you can to stretch out early the issues that you could potentially run into with winter coming on. Power goes out, you've got I'm just a pretty face, all right. One of my old buddies used to tell my prospective girlfriends that he was talking to that I was ugly as a mud fence, but I was a good guy. And also another thing about wintertime in the fish keeping hobby is that there are a lot of conferences and meetings and talks that go on in the wintertime, because the wintertime is when most people get back into the fish keeping hobby really solidly, because during the summer they're doing things outside, they've got vacations to go on, they've got a lot of other stuff going on in their life, and fish keeping kind of gets shoved back a little bit on the to-do list. But in the wintertime we're stuck at home a lot, and So we tend to concentrate more on our fishes and our fish tanks and our fish rooms, and we've got aquatic experience coming up, the ACA, the Ohio Cichlid Extravaganza is coming up. There are a lot of things to do in the wintertime for fish keepers. Yes, Susan. Susan says it all pretty much basically. Stock up on chemicals, batteries, heaters, thermal blankets, food, air pumps, and filters too. Yes, and as Corona Kids says so well, the wisdom of the ages is to measure twice and cut once. I tend to say that a lot, having been a carpenter in my working life. I know all too well the value of that statement, the value of that sentiment. Because if you cut something too short, there's very few stretchers out there that will really work. All right, guys, we're a little over an hour. Unless anybody has any last minute questions or points to offer, I'm probably going to close up the live stream. As much as I enjoy spending my time with you guys, I'm always ready to get off of here too. That's that balance thing. So I can go back to watching other people's videos. So all right, guys, thank you for stopping by and spending some of your Saturday with us. Yeah, Susan, are you feeling better? We always have to watch over our mom, Susan. If you're not feeling better, Susan, I hope you are soon. All right, guys, I'm out of here. You guys have a good Saturday and a good rest of your weekend. As always, it's a pleasure, and good luck.